I've been getting fairly tortured on Twitter about this Andrew Tate thing. Are you okay with addressing that?
Sure.
Okay, so I think first, before we get started, and I only want to talk about this once because I'm very bored of this, delve into this too much, but I think a bit of clarification on my end. In 2019, I was in Germany, and Andrew Tate bought me tickets to fly to Romania to go discuss business and then to fly back to Canada. And the reason I went was because in 2019, when you Googled Andrew Tate, he came up as a millionaire kickboxer. He had ideas about a subscription platform for me and for you. And I think part of the way, because of how I grew up, I basically said yes to opportunities, and I didn't see a reason to not go talk to a millionaire about how he made money. And I also got the benefit of a ticket home. And I was also already in Germany. So I didn't see a reason not to go. That's also probably partly because I used to say yes to any opportunity, which I also think is part of the reason why I'm successful now. So anyway, I went there. From my experience, I met Andrew and I met his brother Tristan. They were very nice to me. Like, they were nice to me. We had a fun time. The reason that there's a rumor online that we hooked up or we slept together or something, that didn't happen. I've told people that numerous times. It's not like I was a 20-year-old girl like enamored.
Aspersions online too. It's one of the things I've really seen that troll demons like to go after women on that front, right? And so, yeah, it's really vicious, nasty, backbiting behavior.
And it doesn't matter what I say. He's dispelled it. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I haven't really commented on the situation because when I went, they were nice to me. Like, I actually had a pretty good time. He drove me around in his Bugatti and we saw castles, which was a weird experience. I remember telling him, he was a very, very, very smart person. And I remember telling him, you kind of remind me of a human shark. I don't know like what it was, but I was like, it's interesting. I don't know if it's your eyes or something, but you kind of remind me of a human shark. That was it. And then I flew home. So that's the story on my end. Now, I wanted to address that because people have been bothering me on Twitter for like 2 years or 3 years because of pictures of us smoking cigars or having a vodka or something, because I did. And it was fun. But that's it. That's the story on my end.
Do you think you made any mistakes in that venture?
Well, I had no idea he was going to become like the most famous person in the entire world. Would that have changed it? I don't think so. Like, from knowing what I knew at the time, I would have still gone. From knowing more about the webcam stuff, and he told me about. So once I was there, he told me about the webcam stuff.
What did he tell you?
Not in detail. Okay, I can't remember that well, but it was something like women who want to do webcam stuff, like they already want to do it. I help them make way more money, and I take a percentage. And so I was like, okay. I don't think, I wasn't like, that seems like a wonderful business model, but I was like, if there are women who are already doing it and now they're making more money, I guess it doesn't seem, it is what it is, kind of. But I didn't know that until I got there, and then he wanted to set up subscription platforms, and said they could be very valuable, and we'd already been kind of looking into that because you'd had some issues with social media. I was worried you were going to get banned on sites, and so I was already thinking it would be good to set that up with a subscription platform.
Gmail canceled me at one point.
Yeah, I know.
About that time.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So it was like, it would be good to learn how to do the subscription platform. Anyway, so I kind of went there to like scope things out. And it was a very interesting experience, and they were nice to me. That's like the story.
Yeah, well, I hesitate to talk about Andrew Tate because I don't know that much about him, But I can tell you what I know and what I think, and people can take it for what it's worth. I mean, the first question is, why is he so popular? And the answer is, well, if you have to choose between being depressed and anxious and laying downstairs and covering yourself with Cheeto dust and looking at pornography and being timid and never going out, or listening to someone like Andrew Tate who says, like, get the hell out there and take the world, like, That's better. That's the shadow, right, speaking in some ways, right? Like if you're naive and timid and anxious and intimidated and useless and resentful, there's going to be a bit of a monster that needs to call to you to say, you know, gird up your loins and get the hell out there in the world. And so it's better to be a monster than a rabbit in some ways, right? Or at least there's some utility in the more monstrous predatory path that isn't there in the pathetic rabbit path. And that's partly because if you are a pathetic rabbit, you're going to become a predator anyways. You're just going to become a dark, backdoor, backbiting, gossip-mongering, resentful monster.
Society's also pushing that on men in
yes,
particular.
Constantly.
Like, be
well, and
weak.
I knew, and I warned people repeatedly that if the culture kept emasculating men, that men who said, to hell with that, I'd rather be a monster, would become extremely popular. Now, and Andrew Tate is emblematic of that in many ways, because the first thing you got to say about him is that he's genuinely tough, right? So that's not a front. That's not a front. He's a fighter. And you can't take the courageous element of being a fighter away from someone who will actually step in the ring, right? And so now, and then you said Tate's intelligent, and what that means as well is that some of the things he says are going to be of value. Now, why he says those, that's a whole different issue. The thing that disturbs me is that, like, I'm not very fond of the whole online porn thing in any way. And I don't think that it's okay for young women to monetize their sexual attractiveness online. I think that leads to a very dark place for them, even if they're successful, because becoming successful
hurts your soul.
You don't become successful by exploiting yourself. And you might think, well, I can exploit myself. It's like, you can't treat yourself like a psychopath would treat you and get away with it even if the psychopath that's doing that is yourself. That doesn't work. That's why psychopaths aren't very successful, because they exploit themselves just like other people. And so I don't like the whole online porn thing. And then I don't now, my understanding, and I've watched him apparently agree to this characterization online. You know, it's hard to get I'm not trying to be the jury here because I haven't heard the whole damn story, but from what I've watched is he would enter into relationships with women and tilt them in the direction of generating like an OnlyFans following and monetize that and then take a percentage. And there isn't anything about that that I think is acceptable. You know, and you could say, well, you know, women are the captains of their own soul, and if they want to monetize their own attractiveness, then what the hell, why not do it? And if they're going to do it anyways, you know, I can help them, and if I help them, why not take a piece of the action? And the answer is, to me, the answer to that is, well, how about because it's ignoble and wrong? Now, you could counter and you could say, well, you're just too useless and timid to dare to do that, right? And I'd say, you know, point taken. You know, Nietzsche had pointed this out back in the 1850s. He said, most morality is cowardice in the guise of morality. It's not like I'm good. It's just that I'm afraid to do that. And Tate would say, well, if you're just not doing something because you're a coward, that doesn't mean you're good. And whereas I'm forthright and tough, and look at me, I climb into the ring, and, you know, I can entice women into, you know, sex work online and take a cut, and why the hell shouldn't I? And I think that if you're a timid and reprehensible, resentful, bottom-dwelling male, that's going to look like an attractive alternative. But it's not the highest form of human behavior, right? It's not acceptable. Like, I think pimps of any sort I truly believe they're amongst the most contemptible of people. I think there's nothing in, you know, with a pimp is, I've got all these hoes and look at me, like, you know, king of these women. And it's like, no, you are the ultimate in pathetic, parasitic predators. There's nothing about that that's heroic. It's just pathetic. Now, you might say, if you're that type, well, at least I'm not as contemptible as the cowards who hide behind me. It's like, fair enough. You know, there's ranks of order even in hell, and there's lower and higher demons, you know, and the person who would like to do something terrible but is too cowardly to do it, that's a pretty damn low form of demon. But that doesn't mean that the person who would like to do something and is courageous enough to do it, even though it's bad, isn't also a demon. And so, you know, I think fundamentally that Tate serves his immediate self in this like impulsive, gratifying manner. And I think that goes along with his, you know, look at me, I'm in a Bugatti. It's like, you know, fair enough, man, in some way.